welcome back to another episode of Political Prude, the podcast. Now, since the launch of this series, you have yeeted us all the way to the top of the charts on Spotify, where we've remained since. So it's been really insane, but on behalf of the team behind Political Prude, thank you so much. Now, today's episode will be a little bit different. We are joined by not one, not two, but three guests, Megan, Nicholas, and Zalelo. Now, they're all first-time voters like you and me, and they all said that they enjoyed the episodes before, so I was like, okay lah, why not bring them to the show and have them discuss their thoughts. I actually think that they gave this show a little fresh update, so I know that the previous episodes were a little bit intense at times, but I'm hoping for this one to be a little bit more cash. Now, Megan studied public policy and global affairs plus sociology. Nick studied communications, and Zalelo is currently studying communications and marketing. So you'll be able to see how their backgrounds color their opinions. Once again, if you're listening on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, you know the drill. Tap that follow button and rate us 5 stars. And if you're watching us on YouTube, please show your support by subscribing and giving us a thumbs up. And now, enjoy the episode. Hi friends, welcome to Political Prude, the podcast.
I think it's on unique cam, is it? Woo, 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 all?
Hey, why cannot? For vibes, ma.
Oh, for vibes, what?
Alright, so it has been quite a journey, since they announced that the presidential elections were gonna happen. So I just want to check in with you, how are you guys feeling right now in terms of emotions towards the election? Maybe Zalelo, you go first.
Honestly, I'm a bit at a crossroads at this point, and we're running out of time. It's my first time doing this, so it's a lot to take in.
Right. So Nick, how are you feeling?
Honestly, a bit jaded. I actually think this election is quite lame.
Oh! But why jaded?
Okay, I find it very interesting because I feel like this is the first election where people are focusing so much on social media.
Right.
And it's really like even Ng Kok Song is fully going digital, So I just find that part of it very interesting. And looking at everybody post their campaigns or clips, people are inviting influencers to events. People are going down to podcasts and stuff like that. It's just like, whoa, what y'all doing now? Slay per, all that things.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the most interesting part.
Okay.
And that candidates wise,
it's a meh for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Megan?
To be honest, I kind of feel the overwhelming sense, I guess. I feel very upset and very angry.
Okay.
I think not necessarily at the candidates, more the state of democracy in Singapore.
Ooh.
I feel like all the social media activities and all the criticisms of the system, of the candidates, just really reflect this democratic deficiency.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
we're gonna go into that in just a bit.
I feel the anger.
So let's talk about each one first. Let's go through them one by one. Okay, so let's start with Mr. Tharman, right? What have you guys thought of his social media strategy so far?
Okay, I think the thing about social media, right? I feel like there's need to be generalized a bit. Okay, I think the thing about social media is that we put up what we want other people to see. Okay, that's the first thing. And the second thing is that target audience is the most important thing when you are putting out stuff online, because you are essentially trying to keep those people that are supporting you and also trying to gain new eyeballs on you, new followers, new supporters in that sense, right? What Tharman is doing is that he is doing the very classic PAP route of social media, where he's let's say he's doing on a walkabout, there's going to be a video about that. He does a press conference, it's going to be a video about that. Beyond that, there's also that personal touch of conversations about his wife, about his family, him as a person, what he stands for. Okay, it's very standard.
Right.
So it's we've seen this all along on Facebook, but now recently he's created Instagram. He has a new TikTok account, and stuff like that, and he's posting all these short clips. They're quite nice. They're professionally done. It looks polished.
I hear a butt coming.
It's just boring.
Zalelo?
I think for me, as a business POV, I get what he's doing, and he's studying his audience really well. And I think it's a smart move for him to occupy TikTok and occupy all this, because like what you said, that's where the younger generation are, and honestly some older folks as well. So it's a fresh take, although it's recycled information. But I do applaud him for trying out new things, for example joining podcasts, and I mean it's another thing that is new that I've never seen before.
Megan?
I feel like the PAP, like candidates from the PAP, especially those who are very popular, have always had a very weak, even candidates of who are very popular have quite a weak sense on like social media. So I think Tharman has really like risen above that, in my opinion, during this presidential election. But I think probably like I kind of agree with Nick, like, but instead of saying boring, I would say that I think he hasn't really, in my opinion, managed to like capture the attention of like swing voters. I don't think he's really done anything that shows, like, sets him apart from, who he was before. Besides, constantly drilling the fact that, he has an independent mind.
Right.
There's nothing much more to that. you
Right.
know?
Well, in that case, like, I mean, I just want to jump off that and say, when Tharman first announced that he was going to run, I think everybody was like, hey, before the George Gohs and the Ng Kok Songs and Tan Kin Lians, when the moment he announced, everybody was like, this is a sure win lah. Like this, like it's a shoe in. So when you hear this kind of sentiments on the ground, maybe all his team wanted to do was not to rock the boat, right? Because if let's say you're going to be a front runner already, like why risk strategies that maybe, because we've seen how some people flop at social media, and some politicians flop at social media. So maybe all his team wanted to do was, let's just have presence without anything going like risk heavy. I don't know.
I feel like the problem with that is that I think a lot of Singaporeans tend to see the PE as a place where they can kind of like air their dissatisfaction with the incumbent. And especially with such a large pool of first-time voters, I think it is kind of important to still capture the attention of those swing voters, because the last election, not the election before the last 2011 election, the margins were very, very small, right? Less than 2%. And I think that is a good show of like, how Singaporean voters use the PE as a way to, a much safer way to air their dissatisfactions.
Right.
Yeah.
So Nick, you mentioned that you've seen candidates like Tharman really engage with influencers at events and whatnot. I think Tharman was one of the first few that started organizing, or his volunteers were helping him organize these kind of closed door influencer invite only sessions, which is a very interesting strategy. I've heard both good and bad, right? So for one end of commentators say that, hey, this is basically free publicity for him. The influencers go there, they take photos of him, they start talking about him, right? The other side of it is like, hey, why closed door? Why only influencers? So what do you guys think about this?
It's very normal to use a reach that other people have. If I ask Tan Kok Song, wrong. if I ask Tan Xiaoming from Block 82 Hougang Street to come down and visit Tharman, take a photo, where is their photo gonna reach?
Right.
But if I ask somebody that makes video content to come on, put something on TikTok, right? And it can be as like, have you seen Leo Nicole's video?
I did.
Yeah. It's like just like, hey, can you matchmake my friend? Like something as lame as that. It swings the funny people.
Right.
You get different kinds of audiences that Tharman does not usually have.
Right.
And they are maybe backing your corner in a sense, or at least having a bit of eyeballs towards him. So I think that's why influencers are invited.
Right.
And the influencers they invite is like diverse, it's not like just like, it's all the just like smart people.
Right.
You also have your...
Who are the smart people and who are the not smart people, Nick?
You also have big titty people, like you have all kinds going there, right? So it's like really different kinds of like vibes.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that's a good strategy to work with influencers?
Honestly, for me, I think it boils down to the credibility and like the people that he chooses. Yeah, why is it them only? There's all kinds of influencers around. So why did they choose those specific people? Maybe they have high reach, high views, yes, but do they stand for the same kind of values or what? So it's really just a outreach thing, but what is the essence of it? That's my point. And also I feel like I feel like it shouldn't be closed door, because it shows some kind of biasness to it. People like us, we want to know more. If can, I feel like there's it's great that there's sessions, because I get that they're very busy, that they get to meet in person. That's great, but I think people like us, we would like that opportunity as well.
That's fair. I was talking to some people about like this strategy, right? And some of them say that they feel a bit annoyed that influencers, influencers know what works for them, right? And what will
Yeah.
get the views. So you mentioned Nicole's TikTok, and I'm not pointing her out because she was used as an example, but her content actually did really well. I think her video with Mr. and Mrs. Tharman got about 200,000 views on TikTok, right? Which is high visibility. But then there were a lot of people who were like, you had the opportunity to speak to them. Why not talk to them about the actual thing, which is the presidential election? What do you guys think? Like,
No, so this, I'm so sorry. I'm starting to get agitated. I feel like this is one of the main gripes that I have, like, in this presidential election, is that there are so many people who are given this opportunity to speak with the candidates, and then I kind of feel like these opportunities are being squandered, right? With people, all these influencers have huge platforms, a huge reach. And yes, it is beneficial it is to a certain extent beneficial in the sense that, these candidates get exposure. But then I'm kind of like wondering, are the goals in any way aligned? You don't necessarily have to have the same values. But, on some influencers, on the side of some influencers, it kind of seems like what they are trying to do is harvest like the views, the clicks, as opposed to really taking the opportunity to ask real questions that, sorry, I'm getting very upset because I mean, I feel that there's a little bit of hypocrisy involved with influencers where they say like, oh, like I'm a relatable figure. I want to represent my audience. I want to like make a difference in any sort of way, right? Or they just, on the very baseline saying that they are relatable figures to their audiences. But then when you are presented with such a special opportunity, do you actually take the time to use your platform to raise up these issues that your followers are facing?
right.
Yeah.
So can I ask, are you more agitated towards the content that's being put out or the presidential strategy to invite these people in the first place?
I would say it's the former. When I completely understand why they are using these strategies, right? Like you said, it's really like it's natural and it's clever. But then it's like democracy is very much like a two-way street, right? The presidential candidates can go out of their way to try and reach out to different demographics, new people, first-time voters. But then what are the content creators doing with that opportunity? And in a lot of ways, like this is, I mean, sorry to say, but civic education in Singapore is not the best. And a lot of people are very either misinformed or uninformed about what this presidential election is about, or what the presidential candidates are about, right? And this is the chance to, use their platform to clarify some of these things, or to bring up these issues that people are facing. And I feel like the opportunity has been vastly like underutilized.
Yeah.
Right. But just to play devil's advocate, in a way, when I did the podcast with Tharman, and then there was this unplanned moment where we started talking about music, right? And he started talking about his Spotify, like if he was to curate a Spotify playlist, what songs will be on there. So we decided to clip that into a TikTok and a reel, right? And then we sent it out, and it actually did really, really well. And what I realized was that a lot of people said they saw a new side to him, a more casual side, get to know him on a more personal level. Maybe that can be of value as well, right? Where it's soft, it's like a more soft approach.
No, I definitely think that it is of value, especially, when in a lot of ways, like the president is meant to be like a unifying figure, right?
True, yeah.
But I think where the difference kind of lies is that you had an hour to speak with Tharman, with Mr. Tharman,
Right.
and then through that you can sprinkle in some content that shows a different side of him. But when you really only get like, let's say like one question, you get 10-15 minutes with him, then it's kind of like you have to kind of think what your priorities are. Is it, having like a casual conversation with him? Is it farming the views? Or is it, asking him like a real question that could possibly provide useful information to voters?
Right.
I think that balance is important. Like those content that they make, it's fine. But I feel like you say, utilizing the full hour that they have, like I get the content that they're trying to do. They have to pull in viewers that may not even be interested in the elections, or they don't even know, but they relate to this kind of content. But I think there should be important content as well regarding the election, and not just to show their personal side, their personality. That's great, but we also need like some like valuable information regarding the election, since we are the ones voting,
Right.
Okay. Basically, I really think that social media is like a presidential election. It is a popularity contest, right? And one part of that popularity contest is the likability of a candidate. And having your music video, right?
Yeah.
When he's talking about music, it makes him relatable, makes him likable. At the same time, having this sort of humor response to a matchmaking video is also a form of being likable. Like you are not taking things serious all the time, which I see value in. But at the same time, these two contents are also two different things, where one is focused on sorry, Nicole example, but Nicole's friend.
Right.
And the other video is a focus on Tharman, right? So I feel like these are the videos that you want, the videos that focus on Tharman rather than something else, right? And then another thing is that when you invite people over, like as a content creator, right, we are there to do whatever it is for ourselves. Correct? I mean, it's a selfish thing, but yeah, we're just there to get the views or whatever. We have the chance, that's great. And there are different content creators that put out different things. For example, if you invite Joel down, you probably have a more serious conversation, right? And if you invite somebody younger, more like that does comedy content, you can't expect him to go there and be like, hey, how do you feel about LGBT rights? Yeah, so it really depends on the type. I feel like there's a good mix of videos out there that I see where you jump into comedic stuff that showcase their personality and their take on unnecessary things, and then there's also like the deeper ones,
Right.
and I find that both bring value.
Okay. You wanna
Sorry. No, I guess my question then is like, what is the necessity of really seeing like this many parts of their personality? You know, there are certain parts that I think are relevant, like let's say like family life, their relationships, you know, which have become very public. But then there are other things where I feel like it doesn't really add to whether I think this person is a worthwhile candidate to vote for. So for me then, in that sense, it kind of like strays away from the purpose of this like campaigning or these like political processes. Yeah.
Because I think just like any other public figure, for example, a musician, if you think about it, technically only their songs matter. But then you also kind of want to see parts of their lives, whether they go to the gym, like to do yoga, they like jelly beans.
I guess that specific type of content, you weren't the target audience. You know what I mean? Yeah, but it worked for others. Yeah.
All right, so let's just wrap up Tharman's overall strategy. Can we? I want to ask you guys, like, when you look at all the content holistically for Tharman, do you think your impression of him changed based on the content that you saw?
No. No.
I never really had an impression to begin with, so this was the painting for me. Yeah.
Okay.
If the campaign strategy was you are the crowd favorite and you're here to play safe and not rock the boat, I think it did its job. If you're telling me that you wanted to gain new viewers by entering the social media space, then I would say, all right, 5 out of 10.
Oh, got rating metric now.
I actually have a ranking of all their...
Okay, we'll go through them in a bit. Okay. All right, let's move on to Ng Kok Song, right? So I think for Ng Kok Song, I think it's very important for us to have the context in which he entered this sphere, right? So before him, Mr. George Goh came forward. So it was a very clear Tharman versus George narrative that was out there. And when Mr. Ng came into the picture, I think the public perception was like, he's here to split the votes against George, you know, and immediately I felt like a lot of the people were a little bit annoyed with him, whereby they felt like he is like maybe a bit more pro-establishment. After interviewing him on the podcast, what I realized was that both Tan Kin Lian and Ng Kok Song said that they stepped forward because they were very concerned that George Goh will not qualify, which is the reason they wanted to step forward, which is that they want an election to happen. However, that was not the narrative that I think was out there. A lot of people really did think that he was a plant, you know, like all the TikToks, all the Instagram comments were like, oh, you're a plant. So that was the context in which he entered the space in. And the second part was what the public focused on when he announced his intention was his fiancée and the age gap that they had. Which was this 30 years age gap between him and his fiancée Sybil, right? And there was a lot of conversation about that. You know, like, I think the more crude ones were like calling like, oh, Chico Pig or like, you know, pedo and then the others were just like saying like, oh, you know, such an unconventional relationship style. So then, I think when we are discussing his social media strategy, we do have to keep this context in mind, right? Because we have to understand what he was going up against and what he was operating within. So what did you guys think about his overall social media strategy?
I actually think his social media strategy is pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah, like, okay, if you talk about his wife thing, right, everybody has a target audience, and we all know internet trolls exist in the world, and they are vastly the vocal minority, and the majority is silent, right?
Okay.
Like, I watch the videos. Do I care how old his wife is? I don't know.
Right. Fiance, by the way.
Oh, sorry, fiance. Yeah. Like, it doesn't matter, like, to be fair. But if you look at the videos that he's putting out, and he spent a lot of money on ads, by the way, it's like 40K or some shit.
I saw.
Yeah. Like, if you see his videos, you basically can break them down into like how-tos and advices, where he's trying to reach people and trying to help people from a standpoint of, oh, I've done it before, so here is how I did it, and maybe you guys can relate, kind of thing, about, like, especially finance, right? Because he is very good in that space. Apparently, he used to be my dad's boss.
Oh,
yeah, I wasn't paid to say this. But yeah, yeah. So I think that it's very helpful, especially YouTube's #1 video genre is how-to videos, by the way.
right.
So this is a strategy beyond this. It's like I feel like it's a decent lah. You know, you watch a video, you can learn something, and maybe you like the guy.
Yeah.
Like, the focus is on other things and not him.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't really talk much about himself other than in press conferences. But the videos that he chooses to put out is this kind of videos, which I think is fresh.
Yeah. So, I mean, you mentioned how-to videos, and I think one of his how-to reels got like 4 million views on Instagram, which is huge. And I think that translated to followers. Like, I think among the three of them, he did have the highest follower count.
Yeah, he still does. I just checked.
Yeah. So I think in that aspect, like, it was a strategy that's not unique to him, because I saw Tan Kin Lian also do something similar, like doing educational route, but we'll talk about that in just a bit. But I think when he was I mean, let's be real, his team was the one that probably worked with him to come up with that strategy, and I thought that was indeed a good one, because you saw the numbers that it translated into, you know. So,
Production value also not bad.
Yeah, even like when you go to his page, you can see like the thumbnails are really clearly done. So I thought that was really good for across all ages.
right.
Nicely curated.
Yeah, across Facebook, Instagram, and also TikTok.
Right. Okay, that's good. Megan?
I agree. I actually think that out of all the candidates, I would say that his social media strategy was the strongest. Not only because, you know, it hits a really good reach, like what he said, you know, how-to videos are so popular, but I think because it really accurately translates what his campaign messaging is, which is, you know, on the community front, he wants to help youths. He wants to talk about mental wellness, and then with the reserves, you know, he's showing that he does have like financial competency. So I think it's kind of like kill two birds with one stone.
Right.
Yeah.
So throughout his entire campaign, we do see himself aligning with Mr. Lee Kuan Yew quite a bit. You know, he did mention like, I was the one that taught him meditating. You know, I worked with him for many years under GIC. Do you think that's a good thing for his campaign, to be aligning himself with Mr. Lee?
Everybody knows that Lee Kuan Yew is a hero in Singapore, technically, whether as abrasive as he is. Right. Whether it works now or not, it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
It's a legacy. And it's a similar strategy that other YouTubers, TikTokers, they have used before, when you're aligning yourself with a bigger creator when you're starting small. And then after that, you slowly start to branch off into your own thoughts and opinions. Right. So it is a valid strategy, because the fans of Lee Kuan Yew will start to see you, and then after that you start to enter into their ocean of followers and viewers and thinkers. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, as I mentioned in the context, right, like he came in with a lot of people being a little bit annoyed with him as this blunt narrative. Do you think he managed to mitigate that and win people over the campaign period?
I feel like he definitely did, because he started to talk about a lot of other issues, and he posted more content about other issues. And like I appreciated that because I was able to see more about like his thoughts on, even with musicians and for the music scene in future, because I'm a musician, so it matters a lot to me what's gonna happen to the art scene here. And then also like the little how-to videos as well. So like it definitely like made me think more, okay, so how important is learning all these, is having all these languages at your fingertips? Like, will that like contribute to being a better leader about all these? There's a lot of issues at hand. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So, with the issue of Sybil and like the narrative surrounding his relationship with Sybil, one thing that I found interesting was that after a while, he started going on different interviews, including the podcast here, and started telling us about his love story with his wife, who actually passed away from cancer years before. One of my thoughts that I had was, why didn't you begin your story with this? I don't know what was the team's strategy when they first came up to say, okay, like, this is my fiance Sybil, 30 years younger. But I felt like, if let's say you started the story with, I was in a very loving relationship, I loved my wife so much that I felt like I didn't need love anymore, and then someone else just came into my life unexpectedly, I think that the public narrative would be very different. Naturally, if you tell me like, oh, my wife passed away from cancer, I wouldn't go like, hey, go back, I'll just be like, okay, like, this becomes a very cute love story, which was what I felt when I was interviewing him. Like, when he was sitting opposite me and telling me, like, I was taking care of Patricia until she passed away, like, literally almost started crying because like, this is so touching. And then when he jumped off that to say, then I met Sybil, and we had a very like unintentional meet cute, I started rooting for them as a couple, and I was like, whoa, like, why wasn't this part of your core strategy? I don't know, what do you guys think?
I feel like from what I've seen of Sybil, she kind of seems like a very private person. So she might have, made the decision to be like, maybe let's not put that at the forefront of the campaign. Let's focus on like other things. But then probably him coming out later on to speak about it was probably a reaction to all the vitriol that had been going on, right? But at the same time, I also feel like a lot of these comments, calling him like a chikope, or like saying that she's a gold digger, like, I feel like they're kind of unavoidable, even if he were to come out from the start and say like, this is how it happened, these sorts of people, right, like, they're really like incels. They will say whatever they want to say regardless of what happens, like how he frames it and at what point he frames it, right? And so because of that, I mean, I think that it's very hard to get everything right in a campaign, right? So I think that was probably like maybe an oversight on their part, but I think it's also a bit unavoidable.
Yeah, I feel like they probably like didn't expect how big the scale of comments would come about the future first lady. That's what some people are having in mind. Like, hey, whoever who's going to be president, that's going to be the first lady, and it matters to them. So, and then they start comparing all the potential first ladies and what the first ladies could do. And I guess that's when people started to be curious, like, so what does Sybil do? And she's so quiet. They want to know more because unfortunately your candidates are like putting really like their partners out there as well, so, and it's natural to compare.
Right.
Yeah.
So interestingly enough, a lot of people actually did tell me that they're basing their votes off the wives or the partners. They're saying that they don't just look at the candidate. They also, one of the factors is the first lady.
Yeah.
And they're very serious about this because they say that it's very important for the president to come as a package with the first lady. So I'm like, I mean, I never thought of it until they brought it up.
Yeah.
And the first person brought it up, I was like, wow, that's such a new take that I never even considered.
Yep.
And then the second person came, and then the third person came, and then I realized that there's a lot of people out there who are voting based on
everything.
The package of husband and wife, or I guess fiance and fiance.
Yeah. I mean, I think that makes sense, right? You look at like PM Lee, for example. Like, people don't just look at him; they also look at how Madam Ho Ching behaves, right? So I think it's a bit like unavoidable as well.
Nick, you look shocked.
Yeah, because I feel like 80% of the time, like, she's not gonna be there. Like for example, like PM Lee and Ho Ching, right? Like 80% of the time I see him alone. I don't see Ho Ching. When he's giving like COVID, the thingy, he's alone, right? Right. So like. To me, it's like a small thing, lah.
No, the president is a bit different, because both the first lady and the president's photos will be in all the school halls.
Oh,
correct.
Yeah. So photo nice.
So, Mr. Ng Kok Song very boldly said that he wasn't going to do any physical prints in terms of posters, in terms of flyers, and he very boldly said, I'm just going to do everything on digital. So I did a poll on Instagram, and I think there was quite a mixed reviews. 40% said that it was good strategy, 60% said it wasn't good strategy. So I'm quite curious, like, what do you guys think about it?
Okay, for me, I feel like personally, I don't think it's a very, very smart, because in the whole of Singapore, still not everybody's tech savvy. And if you want to win the hearts of the older generation, who are definitely more like, they don't know much also about this whole thing. They don't have access to TikTok, and they're very pro PAP. I feel like most of them are still very pro PAP. So if you want to win people, who have this very narrow view, you still need to have some kind of physical media. You still need to give, person-to-person contact. You need to be there. You need to educate them in person, or even with flyers. Some people are more visual, but still not tech-savvy.
Okay, Nick?
I think it's daring. It's definitely daring. It sends a cool message about sustainability, for example, because he did bring that up, right? And like for example, like the George Goh, he print out a lot of things. Then after he now have to sell.
yes. To charity though, to charity.
To charity. Yeah. What if he maybe thought he maybe won't? Then he like thinking about the future.
I mean,
Like he wouldn't have been qualified or something.
like Ng Kok Song.
Yeah, so he don't print first. Then after that he like, I need to print, but no time. Never mind.
Sustainability.
A full digital campaign.
No, what are your thoughts?
I think he honestly is very fresh. I would, if I was selected as a campaign marketer, I would have Ng Kok Song strategy.
Right.
Really. First, you have relatable bits that any viewer can watch. They don't have to be from Singapore. They don't have to be a voter, but they can watch this and learn something about it. That's step one. I thought that was pretty good. Then step two is that his videos are very polished. Or step two. Point number two. His videos are very polished. They're very well done. The only thing that I would say is a bit lacking, but might be a personal choice because of preference, is that the personal life bit. Right. If there are so many questions about Sibyl, right, and like you said, he should come out and have it. And the other candidates have done this, by the way. Like for example, Tharman's most liked video is a video about him and his wife, right? So if you think about that, then maybe you should have more about you and your wife, especially when one of your biggest online criticisms is about Sibyl, right? It could swing those people that are just voting for you because of your wife to your side.
Right.
That's something that I feel.
Okay.
Yeah. The third thing about Ng Kok Song, right, is that a lot of people don't know who he is coming into this campaign, right? And social media is the thing that will basically blast your whole life out on display. Yeah. So I feel like there should have been so much more about him, because other than to traders, to stock analysts and stuff like that, nobody knows who he is. Tan Kin Lian has been in previous elections. Tharman has been a very recognized figure in the political space. Tan Kin Lian has regularly uploaded on Facebook all these years, but nobody knew who Ng Kok Song was.
Right.
So like for him to spend so much money on social media, I think right move. And also, but as a person, I still don't know who you are.
Okay. Megan?
I think there definitely is a loss of like a certain target audience, right? But I actually really like how he responded to it, especially on the front where he said, don't look down on seniors and think that they don't know how to use social media. A lot of our older generation are actually very tech savvy, and I thought that was a really smart response. Especially as yes, increasingly Singapore has been going digital and rolling out a lot of initiatives to help the older generation become more tech savvy. I think even if it is a loss in that sense, he definitely did recover from it well, in my opinion, on the optics.
Right. So my point of view on this is that if you're gonna go full digital, I agree that a lot of older people are on WhatsApp actually. So if he was gonna go full digital, actually I think that he should have focus on a WhatsApp campaign.
Send customized good morning message.
Correct.
Good morning from Ng Kok Song, like that.
But I don't even know if he did it or not, because I'm not the target audience, but I've never received like the Ng Kok Song
broadcast
campaign.
message.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know if you guys joined Tan Kin Lian's WhatsApp group.
No.
It's a WhatsApp group.
He has a WhatsApp group. Savvy,
How many people?
1,000 plus. Yeah. Wow. No, so it's basically like a HQ. And then they will craft their messages, and they say, please viral this message. And then they will activate and all forward to all their group chats. So I was like, oh, that's quite interesting lah. So I haven't really seen.
Good strategy.
Ng Kok Song has a WhatsApp page actually that he releases videos. So hopefully like it was in that strategy to speak the language of the older generation and have them forward lah. I think if his team did that, incredibly intelligent. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Hey, that's
Yeah.
a very cool stuff that I never
Yeah.
thought about. WhatsApp.
Yes, yeah.
WhatsApp. Yeah, because you know WhatsApp is a huge platform.
Yeah.
Right?
Everybody in Singapore use WhatsApp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
WhatsApps. Can you WhatsApp me this?
So interestingly, right, Tan Kin Lian's team cut out a clip from the podcast he did with us on Political Prude, and they made it into like a WhatsApp shareable video. And then they say, hey, share. Actually, I felt like, I think not bad. Yeah.
WhatsApps.
WhatsApps.
Same thing. This one is about target audience, right? Who's on Telegram, who's on WhatsApp.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like free marketing because you're asking the people to share.
Correct. Yeah. All right. So let's sum up Ng Kok Song, right? Let's talk about his overall strategy. What do you guys think?
I think it's a fresh take. Definitely feel more sincerity coming from him, and he's been addressing a lot of issues that some other candidates have not. And I appreciate him like giving us an insight to his lives, because we can tell that they're a bit more reserved, but because there's a big hoo-ha, I think they did it quite eloquently. It just maybe they should have said it at the start, like what you mentioned. Yeah.
Actually, I did attend a tea session with both Sybil and Mr. Ng. So in context is that when Mr. Tharman came, he came with his wife Jane. So she was in the studio, but when Mr. Ng came, Sybil wasn't able to make the session. So I met her for the first time at this tea session, where I just like tried to listen to what everybody how everybody was interacting with them, and you're right, they're incredibly private about their lives, and I think that this election really took them a lot to be more open with the public, and you can see it, and I mean all four of us here are like media accustomed really, like we're a lot more comfortable in front of cameras and speaking to the people, but I can see them really trying their best, but yeah, like I can see them being very, very incredibly private.
But it gets me wondering, like, if he does become president, like, this is going to be the norm. So are they going to be able to handle that? Because you're going to be watched the whole time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I don't think there's any more things that they can reveal. They've really been so open about like their personal lives, right? So yeah.
I think from her very first statement as well, she did acknowledge that, I know that now, we will kind of be under the limelight and the media will be on us. So I think they must have had that conversation, and I think like what Nick said earlier, unless you really get into the scene, you're not going to know the real like impacts, everyday impacts that it has. Yeah.
Right. We'll get back to the episode shortly, and I'm absolutely not going to remind you to follow, rate, or subscribe. Instead, I'm going to give you a thumbs up for listening to this point. And now, back to the episode.
Back to Tan Kin Lian.
Tan Kin Lian is the only candidate that has been regularly posting on social media before any of them, right? So Tharman had a Facebook page, but not regular poster, as he admitted on the podcast. His style has always been face-to-face. He wants to be on the ground, face-to-face, in-person discussions. George Goh had an early start on Instagram, and we saw that his focus was really Instagram and TikTok when it came to social media. And then Ng Kok Song was focused a lot on Instagram, right? Where we saw his real strategy really just like get pushed out. Then lastly, we have Tan Kin Lian. He came in with, I think, it was a little bit chaotic, I would say, at the very start. I mean, his entire journey was a little bit chaotic, right? He only announced that, I'm interested to run at the very end. I think the entire team at Political Prude started scrambling. At one point, we were like, is he going to do it? Is he going to do it? And we made the decision to say, okay, I think regardless of whether or not he's serious, let's just interview him, because we think that he might have a shot. And thank God it paid off, right? We were one of the first few podcasts that had an interview with him. But even at that point, his strategy was to start setting up as he was announcing. So I believe they started with a WhatsApp group, and then halfway through they said, WhatsApp has a limit, and then they just jumped over to Telegram, and then the Telegram group had issues. They had to delete the group and then reset another one on the same day. So the whole thing was very like chaotic. And until now, we don't really see much of a presence on Instagram. He's trying to penetrate TikTok as well. But we see that most of his content is still Facebook heavy, and as what I'm seeing, WhatsApp heavy as well, right? So most of his content that is available on Instagram and TikTok are actually excerpts from old interviews, doorstop interviews, and podcast clips. And people have then been interacting with them, So a lot of polarizing statements that he's made on podcasts that has really gotten people to talk about what he's saying. So I want to ask you guys, like, what are your thoughts on Tan Kin Lian's overall strategy in comms and or social media?
Before we experience Megan's rage,
You can see me from the side, like already, like
I can see the fire. Like,
I was like, ooh, this side of the table is feeling a little bit hot right now.
I can feel it.
Yeah, I feel it too.
Let's talk about some good points about his social media strategy.
Okay.
I think you need to know Tan Kin Lian as a person. He's rich AF, but he takes the bus.
Right.
I think that's a very cool point about him.
Okay.
And that he's like very no frills, bochap. I just want to live my life kind of thing.
Yeah.
Says what he wants to say.
Yeah.
That's what he wants to do. Runs how he wants to run.
Yeah.
Right? That's very important because one thing that I thought is quite smart, maybe not so smart, double-edged sword, but he's not good at social media. Right? I mean, he does regularly post. He has fans. I just want to say, right, I see the most Tan Kin Lian videos of everything.
Right.
That's a very good thing. His reach is insane.
Right.
Okay. Might be insults or whatever, but there's a reach. Right. I've been hearing about Tan Kin Lian, right, since long before this election.
Yeah.
Because of his Facebook posts. And it will be these weird thoughts, like intrusive thoughts of an old man, maybe, right? And he knows that it gets him that certain reach. He has said it before.
Yeah.
He says pretty girl, even if there's no pretty girl, because he knows that it gets more eyeballs.
Right.
Right. So he doesn't care what is the narrative, but he just wants to be seen.
Yeah.
Right. In a sense, it is the same social strategy as Stephen Lim. Right. The content might be nonsense, but it's there.
but Stephen Lim is not running for president.
Yeah. Let's get to that part. I'm talking about like whatever he says, regardless of what he says. This strategy, right? It works for some part of life. Yeah.
Okay, another good thing is he stays true to himself. Yeah.
Yeah. He's really adamant on the things he does, you know.
Yeah.
And if he's not that good at social media, he's accepting interviews from podcasts from everywhere,
Yeah.
even if he knows that people are attacking him.
Yeah.
And it's because he knows these clips will go viral, right? He just went to talk to like Jian Hao Tan and Tommy and like
Yeah.
Luki, and like
Yeah.
they told me like, bruh, they want to whack him already, right? But like he'll stop, you know. But like he will still do it.
Right.
And he's one man and he just come like that
Yeah,
Yeah.
he literally came into our studio a single person, and I felt like that was incredibly brave. Like there was nothing. He was so honest and so really just genuine. Not PC at all. I think when the candidates came, they went to each person, shook their hands like a formal candidate. Tan Kin Lian came in and he said, "Oh, I just bought this jacket for this interview. It's brand new. My pockets are still sewn together." And he's like, "Do you have a scissors I can borrow?" So my team was basically cutting his pocket, sewing for him. And I haven't even said hi to him yet.
Cute.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, that's interesting. That's new, And then, but he was still friendly, respectful of the entire team. Tried to have small talk lah. So I was like, okay, that's one thing I realized about him, right, is that in person, at least, at least in my interaction with him in person, he seemed very harmless. He's just a harmless old man that just says whatever he thinks. But what he may not be aware of is that some of the things he says can be harmful. So I think that's my position when it comes to him, right? And we've seen how a lot of people have had very polarizing viewpoints on him on social media. And yeah, that's just how I view him. Yeah.
Again, before we attack the things he says, I
Yeah.
also want to bring up another point that he has a target audience.
He
And
does.
his target audience is not the young people that are more democratic.
Yeah.
It's really the conservative minds,
Right.
the old
Yeah.
people that do believe that patriarchy is the way to go, that women should stay at home and cook for us, that the Chinese majority is the only thing that's important. Okay,
Does he think that way?
based on what he says,
Right, okay.
I would think so.
But I feel like democracy is different from like conservative values like patriarchy. You know, that
Yeah,
there
yeah.
is a difference, right?
Yeah. There is, but he does.
I think I feel that he very much is for democracy because he says that he is, you know, an opposition candidate. But being for the patriarchy, yeah.
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 All right, Megan, shoot away.
No, I think
Zalelo first.
no, you go first.
No,
You go
no.
first. I think I'll
Zalelo
go for
first,
like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I'll just keep it simple. I'm just gonna be honest. I disagree with a lot of things he says, and sometimes the things he says just shows me that maybe he doesn't really know what he's talking about. But you know, I find myself giving him excuses for the things he says, like, oh, he maybe it's the old mindset. They say things like that, but they mean it this way. But how long am I gonna keep doing that? You know, I'm going to be voting for the next president. I don't have time to do that. And like there was one video that really struck me where I think people are complaining that he doesn't let his wife speak. So they made a different video where he went to Geylang Serai and, hey everybody, she's wearing green because she's sensitive to Malays and Muslims. And I'm like, what? Like what's that supposed to mean? And like what was it for? And how does this help? I'm like, what's the context? It's totally like, is this your way of trying to get us to vote? Like even for the people who are narrow-minded, like does he think they agree with this? Or like where are his bases from? You know? So it gives me, it doesn't give me confidence.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
I mean, as Nick said, I feel like maybe when he said that, he was trying to appeal to like the older generation that go like, oh,
You have
Hari
Malay
Raya,
friends,
Hari
means you're
Raya
not
is
racist.
green color, you know.
Right.
And they say, oh, green color means racial harmony, yeah, you know. So maybe like sometimes, I mean, there are people who really do feel like that is racial harmony, you know, like just being sensitive or celebrating another person's culture. So
Yeah.
maybe that was his target audience. I don't know. All right, Megan,
I can't wait.
Yeah, me too.
the floor is yours, Megan.
I think when you go up and you try and gain a platform, a local political platform, and then when you receive this position of president, then you have all these duties, and one of which is to meet with foreign dignitaries and kind of like represent Singapore, right? And then you think also about his community duties, which is like social outreach. I think then it becomes important to consider on that level as well, what kind of social outreach is he going to get behind, right? And how does the way in which he views women and women's place in society, women's place in the household, women's place in the workforce, how might that affect how he views his work in the community, right? And I see so many clips of him saying, this is just like attempts by malicious people to smear him, and how come, all these years he's been making comments and nobody has said anything. Only now when he runs for president, then it's coming out. This must be a smear campaign. And I think like you're putting yourself up on such a public platform. The whole basis of democracy is that people should be discussing. And when you come into a position of power, of course these things will come up. Maybe they have not come up before because you have not been, anybody with like a particular authority in the social political scene. But now that you are, then you have to take into consideration that, okay, maybe I meant these things harmlessly, but they do have an impact. What is the responsibility that comes with having a platform, that comes with having a position of power? If you are meant to be a unifying source in Singapore politics, then you have to be able to consider views other than your own, outside of, very conventional ways of thinking, like the patriarchy, like where women should be. I watched this one podcast where you said, Singapore would be a lot better if we allowed like 50% of women to be homemakers. And to me, that was just truly baffling. He said, of all things to criticize Lee Kuan Yew about, right? You criticize him for putting women into the workforce.
Yeah.
It is really beyond me, because it for me it goes to show how little he understands about gender equality. And I think that is of paramount importance if you are going to take up such a high unifying position that is meant to represent every single Singaporean, regardless of race or gender. Yeah.
So you mentioned the role of the president with regards to government and politics, right? I think the major news that we all received yesterday was that Tan Bock actually stepped forward to say he's going to endorse Tan Kin Lian, which also means that, you know, in the 2011 Battle of the Tans, where we had 4 Tans competing, 3 of them are now in one alliance with both Tan Jise and now Tan Bock backing Tan Kin Lian up. I think by now we understand that the role of the president is above politics. What do you guys think of this endorsement? And do you think that if Tan Kin Lian gets elected into the role, he will be able to rise above politics? Because, I mean, at the end of the day, both Tan Jise and Tan Bock are opposition politicians, right? So what do you guys think?
I think his strategy, like Tan Kin Lian's strategy, is very simple. He's not going for everybody. He's going for a very select group of people.
Yeah.
He's going for the Chinese. You know, he's going for like people with that thought that we should not be progressive as a nation.
Okay.
Easy. Yeah.
Okay.
Like, for example, like people that do not believe in LGBT, for example. Right? Like, he's going after those people, right? Because he knows that he can't fight on the same grounds.
Yeah.
To a progressive Gen Zer that
Yeah.
like there's no way he's winning their vote.
Yeah.
Right. So he's just swinging wildly on the other side.
Yeah.
And seeing what hits decent strategy. I mean,
Okay.
not like I agree with you.
Strategy wise.
Strategy.
Okay.
I mean, on his part, it's a smart move lah. He's taking the opposition, and now it's like, what's the next step? Is to team up with people who have the same views, what? And
Yeah.
it makes him look like he has good backers because they've run for presidency before, you know.
Yeah.
So then the older people might think, oh, now there's more chance. Oh, they believe in him. Oh, I confirm is this guy. I believe in them.
You know, I think the one thing about Ng Kok Song's strategy that I much prefer to Tan Kin Lian's is Ng Kok Song's focus on this being a position above politics, of that this run should be non-partisan.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that Tan Kin Lian, you know, like what Nick said, he is really just going for the opposition votes. And because of that, I think his strategy, I mean, of having the two Tans endorse him is very clever. But I don't know, it's not something that I personally can get behind. Because at the end of the day, I think, you know, when you really look at the role of the president, it is supposed to be non-partisan. You know, and I think Tan Kin Lian has talked a lot about how, you know, it's very important to have a different voice to the government, especially when it comes to things like unlocking the reserves. But I feel like I haven't actually heard how he's going to go about doing that, right? Which for me is kind of like the key that I would need to know to put my vote behind that. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel so far all we've heard is like how he feels about things, but what are the steps to take? And you know, and because his views are quite narrow, right? I think he forgets that he's addressing a whole nation and not just people who think like him.
Right. One of his strategies in reaching out to young people was actually releasing this financial book that he used to sell for $6, but now he's putting it up for free. And he says that a lot of people have been downloading it. And he's been focusing on, and he has also released this statement in public addressing the young people, talking about like finance and whatnot. Do you guys feel like you have engaged well with that strategy in terms of him giving financial advice to young people?
Never heard about this.
Nope, same.
But it sounds cool.
Never listen to political Prude, no?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's available for download. It's on his website. He says he gives very practical advice. You can read it in about 5 hours on finance.
I guess it comes down to, do I want to take his financial advice? You know what I mean?
I mean, he says that he grew NTUC Income's assets by 600 times to billions of dollars. So, you know.
You do want to
I
take
do
his
want to
financial
take his
advice.
financial,
No,
yeah.
no. He's not a stupid man. Let's be clear.
He's not stupid.
He's
no.
not stupid.
Yeah.
He's a very smart man. Okay, but he might have views that are just against our current thinking as a
Yeah.
progressive nation.
Yeah.
Right. And the fact is, in this current stage of Singapore, is that enough to win? It might be, you know,
Right.
because if you think about it, let's say he only care about the Chinese people, 70%.
Yeah.
Right. And then the people that can vote, the age, right?
Yeah.
Then it's like maybe like 45% is like the older crowd already.
Yeah.
Right. And then after that, maybe like half of them like rally to his cause.
Right.
That might be enough.
Yeah.
You see? So that if he focuses on that, yeah, that's his strategy. Right? We might not
Correct.
agree with it because we are on the other side. But it might work.
Yeah, the
You never
numbers
know.
game.
Okay, so let's wrap up on Tan Kin Lian. How do you guys feel about his overall strategy?
You
In one sentence.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think when it boils down to it, I hear him that he says he's opposition, but I don't know how he's going to use that to the Singaporeans' benefit. I don't think he's really expounded on that very much. And for me, that is like a major failing of his campaign.
Okay, Zalelo.
I guess for me, it's controversial, and I don't know if he can walk the talk.
Okay.
In terms of social media strategy, I actually think it's pretty good. The content-wise, maybe I don't agree, but I rate it a 7.
Oh, wow. So in terms of campaign-wise, when the elections first started, I think a lot of people said there's a clear front runner, right? The campaigns have happened. We've seen how they have done, how they have all performed. Do you feel like at this point there's still a very clear front runner?
Yes.
Also,
Numbers game, maybe not.
Okay.
So the power of social media is so strong, right? It doesn't matter at what age you're the one consuming it, right?
Yeah.
But as long as you're spreading a message, it becomes this ripple effect where I can watch the video as a 28-year-old, my 50-year-old mother will watch it and she'll be like, yeah, I understand, right?
Yeah.
And so like if you're talking about like campaigning wise, I do feel that Tharman has been pretty weak on this side.
Right.
Because he has not shown us how he is separated from the PAP and is trying to be above that party, right? But the other two have done a pretty strong identity in terms of what they stand for, whether we agree with it or not.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks. Zalelo?
I really feel like more and more of us are at a crossroads because we've seen the other sides to the candidates that you mentioned, and like Tharman this is normal for him. He knows the ropes. He knows what to say. Some things look very like, oh, he talked about this, there's certain things that he can't say. And it's like, he's been media trained, we all know that. And for the other two, maybe perhaps much less, especially for one of them. But yeah, it's a fresh take. So I guess it's the pros and cons, and yeah, it's a harder decision to make, I guess. What we basically is what you want in your president. What kind of person you want that position to be taken, by. Yeah.
Personally, I think that the establishment voters, we're always going to vote for Tharman, right? And there is so much strength in those numbers. And then the entire establishment will always be voting for entire establishment. And I think that because of that, there might be a split, right, between Ng Kok Song and Tan Kin Lian, which might dilute the votes. And then with the middle ground voters, I feel like Tharman continues to be the safe choice. I think from what I've seen, a lot of people in the younger generation especially do not resonate with what Tan Kin Lian has said, which is why I think at the end of the day, Tharman is still the front runner.
Right. I take a little bit of a different perspective to that. I actually don't see Ng Kok Song splitting Tan Kin Lian's votes now. I see Ng Kok Song splitting Tharman's votes actually.
Yes,
because
I agree that.
a lot of people see Tharman and Ng Kok Song as like one side, and then you see Tan Kin Lian on the other side. So I think for me, I'm like, oh, that's quite interesting. When we first entered this, it feels like it was the split was between George and Ng Kok Song. But now it feels like Ng Kok Song is going to take away votes from Tharman, which is very interesting because we were, at first he was vilified for splitting the opposition vote. And now I'm seeing this shift where I feel like people are thinking, hey, he's splitting the vote for the establishment vote. So I don't know. I feel like there's been a shift. Yeah. Okay, so my last question to you guys is, we're going to be entering polling day really soon. All of us here will be making our votes. You don't have to reveal your vote, but I just want to ask you, what are you basing your vote on? And what are your thought processes when you're making that vote?
For me, I think it's really simple. It just boils back down to what are the 3 duties of the president, and who I feel fulfills those 3 duties, will fulfill those 3 duties the best. And then, you, especially on the community front, unify all these different communities. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to choose the one that looks the best at the NDP. Hey, nah.
Cancel.
I do think that the one key aspect of a president that nobody really mentions is that he keeps the government in check. So I would prefer a candidate that can step up and like bitch slap the politicians that are sleeping around and stuff like that. That are not in line with the morals and values that a politician should have as a leader of Singapore.
I guess mine is a mix of both, honestly. I just need somebody that's honest and sincere in doing their role and not just trying to win people's hearts. Sometimes you have to do what a lot of people will disagree with. So I'm just still at a crossroads.
Got it. For me, I think it's on two levels. I think on one level is personal values, whether or not this person is aligned with what I believe. The second level is whether or not this person can fulfill what I think is good for Singapore when it comes to the roles of the three roles that Dr. Gillian in episode 1 outlined. So that's what I'm thinking about. I haven't actually made my decision, but I will be sitting down and reviewing everything before we go there.
Same.
If Donald Trump can win, Tan Kin Lian can win.
What a way to end the episode, Nick.
Not sure what he's trying to say, but
Well, thank you guys so much for really taking the time out of your schedule to do this episode. This was the one episode that I felt like was the most chill. It really feels like I was talking to my friends, so I really appreciate you guys, giving your perspectives and insights to everything that's been going on.
God, you're sitting next to pretty girl.
Eh? Can I say? I can't. You say can. So yeah, like pretty girls and handsome guys. Where can we find you guys on social media if anybody wants to follow you?
If you want to see stupid videos, then you go to my TikTok Instagram. Hakawang. But if you want more concise thoughts, then you watch my Instagram stories. Thank you.
Okay, you guys can find me on like almost everywhere. I am Zalelo on Instagram and TikTok, and Zalelo on Spotify.
Slay.
You guys can find me on Instagram and TikTok. My handle is Chia, with 4 A's. And I also have a podcast hosted by my friends here at Zoda Pop. It's Back of the Party on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, wherever.
And she's going to be doing an episode on the elections as well.
Yes, I am.
So I'm excited to hear what you have to say about it. Well, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Political.
That was not the jingle.
I really hate your shirt.
Is it because it's not green? It's all these malicious comment. Really? Cannot
I will handle it.
Tomorrow I will wear green.
Okay, guys, that brings us to the end of yet another episode of Political Prude, the podcast. I had a lot of fun doing this episode. It genuinely felt like having a dinner conversation with my friends. So a massive shout out to the incredible guests, Zalelo, Megan, and Nick. By the way, we actually capo the comments and the sweet ones really make us very happy, so thank you so much. Now, you can also show us your support by following us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and giving us a 5-star rating. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and also don't forget to give us a thumbs up. Now, I can't believe we're almost at the end of PE 2023, but this has been Political Prude, the podcast. This was the Zoda Pop Podcast.